percent change from baseline. Average pigment intensity decreased by about 4%.
But significant.
Yeah. Welcome back, everyone, to the Chemist Confessions Podcast. I'm Gloria.
And I'm Victoria.
This is a human conversation on all the skincare science we talk about on the daily. And last week, we took a mini step away, or actually we took 2 weeks away from this topic because I needed a break. But today, we're back, and we're gonna just move on to the next vitamin C derivative.
Yep. Today, we are talking about THD Ascorbate. This has been a very popular request this year, which was interesting. And let's just say the research, there's going to be a lot to talk about. And yeah, I can't wait to share. So I think we should just get right into it.
For those of you who are curious about more a closer look at vitamin C in general, a background on it, why we are talking about derivatives, you can revisit our 3-O-ethyl episode and our dedicated ascorbic acid episode. But we're just laser focused on THD today. And to start, we're going to address question numero uno, which is always, is THD ascorbate a good antioxidant, which is one of the main reasons why people use vitamin C to begin with. And before I dive into data, I'm going to say no.
Just put it out there right now.
Just before, because this part gets a little nerdy and a little dense, but while you guys are waiting for the conclusion, I'm going to say no.
Yeah, and it's no, like a very firm no. So we should get right into almost at the in tubo results, which if you're wondering what that even means, it's usually it's an experiment that's usually done in like a test tube that does involve any sort of cell culture or clinical. This is like the litmus test, the first pass, the screener to figure out its antioxidant potential. So we're going to show those results because they have some comparisons.
Yeah, it's really dense. The first two charts that you see are two bar graphs. And these two bar graphs are of the ORAC assay. ORAC, without getting into it, is a pretty basic measurement of antioxidant capacity of ingredient. Yeah, it's screening a bunch of different types of pro-oxidants that you might encounter. And the results, if you just look at the bars, you're like, okay. The green bars are that of THD, and the orange bars are that of ascorbic acid. You're like, okay, well, without reading it too close, it seems like ascorbic acid might be better for some, but THD doesn't look too bad. And then you zoom in on the actual measurement. The units of measurement is given in TE, which is Trollocs equivalent. What you need to know about that value is basically the bigger the number, the better. That means it's basically saying TE is called Trollocs equivalent. But basically what you need to know is the bigger this number, the better. This means there's more activity and more efficiency. If you just look at the very, very bottom, which kind of sums all the different bars together, the total ORAC value, you're like, okay, THD is at 1,000, whereas ascorbic acid is 30,000. So you're like, 30x, that's not great. And then you take a look at the y-axis, which is micromoles TE per gram for THD, and ascorbic acid is per milligram, which means you need to multiply by another 1,000. It's not that THD in this assay is 30 times weaker than ascorbic acid. It's more like 30,000 times weaker.
Yeah, so the ascorbic acid antioxidant profile does come from a reference paper. Mm-hmm. So this lab did not actually do like a comparative test side by side, but no matter what, because it's in tubo, the measurements should relatively be a little bit more standardized in a sense. So, but yeah, overall, it's I think the most shocking thing was the decimal point, just trying to like bring it over like, okay, so that's 30,000, that's 300 times another 1,000. Like, yeah, it's kind of wild.
Yeah. So when I got to this point in the paper, I was like, okay, I should keep an open mind. This is like we kind of alluded to in the ethyl ascorbic acid episode. There is 1,000 different ways to measure antioxidant capacity. ORAC, standard, basic, but it is just one assay. So let's look at the other ones. So they also measure what we call lipid peroxidation inhibition, which is another assay. And this time they're like, it don't look too good against ascorbic acid. So we're just going to move on to something else. They actually tested it alongside something called acetyl Zingerone, which is an antioxidant derived from wild ginger. And it also doesn't seem that great. And this time they gave kind of like a general, other than the bar graph, they also give a general IC50 value. And if you remember, that's the amount of ingredients that's needed to quench half of the free radicals. So the smaller that number, the better. That means it's more efficient. THD Ascorbate has an IC50 value in this assay of 38.7 milligram per milliliter. Acetyl Zingerone has a 0.46 micrograms IC50 value, which means it's a lot more efficient than THD. So that feels like 2 strikes on antioxidant capacity there.
And there's a lot of numbers flying around, but you essentially want a lower IC50 value to show efficiency. So I know it sounds like there's some that are decreasing while some are increasing. So, but overall, the point of us sharing this data is to show that remember that this is supposed to be the screener, and this is for THD Ascorbate, and then THD Ascorbate possibly stabilized with Acetyl Zingerone, this additional ingredient. And the goal here is to first be like, why would anybody move forward with THD Ascorbate? That is just a fascinating decision.
Yeah, exactly. They done in this paper, I should mention, this is one facet of all the studies they looked at. This is the most important part to answer the question, is THD considered a good antioxidant? But like exactly as Victoria said, is going through the data. It's just like, it's amazing to me that people kept testing THD because none of the in vitro looked that great. One of the other things we should call out here, which is the stability aspect of THD. All sorts of vitamin C derivative gets touted as the more stable version of vitamin C. But this one is a little questionable because they showed they did HPLC test to measure the amount of THD that is degraded in the presence of singlet oxygen, which is one of the very prevalent free radicals that you'll find.
But only one. There's a lot of different radical species out there.
Yes, this one is usually generated by UV light and pollution. So it's a very common one that's tested in skincare. And you will see a yellow bar that's like, oh, it doesn't look too bad. But then you realize the yellow bar is the amount of THD left when you combine it with Acetyl Zingerone. So within the presence of Acetyl Zingerone, you're able to retain about 75% of all the THD after 10 minutes. And then
we're not going to talk about that.
without Acetyl Zingerone, that value goes to 0% after just 6 minutes.
Yeah, first of all, it took some time trying to digest all of these graphs, but then I got to this graph and I was like, where is the purple bar? I'm like, what am I even looking at? I was like, what is 0%? And then you're like, oh my God, it actually degraded with just after 6 minutes. Like that's a time frame that, I don't know, is in the realm of antioxidants and vitamin C. Like it's short, but not that. I think that might be the shortest I've seen in a while.
Yeah. So in the paper, they're arguing that with Acetyl Zingerone is able to help stabilize and preserve and boost the efficacy of THD. But I'm reading that like, y'all are bending over backwards to rescue something that doesn't seem like it's worth saving. But like we always say on this podcast, in vitro is the first pass of indication, even though we have no idea why, based on the in vitro data, people decided to keep going with this, but they did. So we're going to leave it here and take a quick break because the conclusion here is just like, it seems like a kind of crappy antioxidant, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't have any clinical efficacy. And thankfully for us, it has been through quite a few clinical tests. So we're going to take a break and we're going to come back and take a look at all the clinical evidence. With sunscreen on our minds, it makes sense to wonder about sunscreen removal. Our Blank Slate Gel Cleanser is our gentle power cleanse that's been formulated to help remove daily sunscreen and simple makeup.
Simply apply this non-fragrance, low-foam, thick amber gel onto a damp face. Massage on skin for 30 seconds and then wash off. A gentle one-and-done step, vetted by our community 3 times to start off your skincare routine on the right foot. If you're curious to try Blank Slate, don't forget to use CC Podcast 2025 for 15% off your next order.
We are back. So we just explained how we're not going to be looking at THD in the sense of antioxidant capacity, but does it have a place in general anti-aging skincare? All right, so the first clinical study we're going to share with you is actually a study done by a supplier that is going to be looking at the combination of 5% THD plus 1% acetyl zingerone, and they're going to compare this with just 5% THD. They're going to test this on 44 subjects split into these 2 groups. So they're going to be about 20 subjects each, and they're going to be testing it for 8 weeks. I'm going to tell you right now, the data is interesting because they're going to be looking at it for several anti-aging benefits, including wrinkles and hyperpigmentation.
Yeah, so they measure average pigment intensity at the 4-week time point and at the end at the 8-week time point. And you can see just very visually, it's very apparent that the THD plus the acetyl zingerone group outperformed the THD only group by a lot. I will say even the raw data, like even the better group doesn't seem that impressive, because if you look at the y-axis, it's percent change from baseline. Average pigment intensity decreased by about 4%.
But significant.
Yeah, again, it's like in the realm of like you really have to use some
Squint hard.
highly calibrated computer to capture that. Fine,
Yeah.
let's move on to the next number. This is where Victoria did quite a bit of a double take. They also measured average redness intensity, and at the 4-week time point, the THD and acetyl Zingerone group seems to be steady from baseline, but at the end of 8 weeks, it decreased the average redness intensity by about 10%. The funky one is the THD only group.
You might be wondering, oh, this bar goes up. Does that mean? Why, yes, it does. It means that the redness has increased after the use of 5% THD alone. You can still see that the redness still increases after week 8, but it has
Chilled out a bit.
yeah, exactly. Chilled out a bit compared to week 4. But I think when I read this, I had to confirm with Gloria, and then I also was kind of trying to think back to when have I ever come across a paper where an ingredient actually makes skin worse, and I cannot think of it. It's been, I think, a really long time since I've seen something like this.
What makes this equation even weirder is they also took the average wrinkle severity to see if you can consider anti-aging ingredient. And again, the THD plus AZ group seem to have some slight improvements across 8 weeks. I would say this actually makes it a terrible anti-aging combination, because if you look at the y-axis, after 8 weeks, the change from baseline is like 3%. No, I don't think it counts.
Not really sure.
The funky one is the THD alone group. It seems like the wrinkle count went up.
Yes. So if you look at week 4, you are interpreting that correctly. For this skin concern, after 4 weeks of using 5% THD alone, your wrinkles have increased by about 7%. And in the grand scheme of the numbers we were kind of discussing for like brightening, and that's not insignificant, actually.
Yeah, it doesn't seem great.
No.
So anyway, based on this first early smaller Scythian study, we're like, okay, 5% seems a little questionable. What's surprising to me is people looked at all that and the in vitro data, and they're like, we are gonna keep going until it works. In the paper, they also had some before and after pictures. They're like, okay, they're not the most high def ones. I just want to point out that the lady on the bottom of the screen, in the baseline picture, she clearly had lipstick on, which to me is like such like a rookie mistake. You're supposed to take pictures of bare face. Like, what else does she have on her face at this time point? It's just like kind of wonky around. I feel like it's like a well-meaning, well-constructed clinical. Yeah. And the takeaway though is like, huh.
Okay. And the other thing too, I was looking at just so A and B are before and afters of a subject that used only THD.
Mhm.
Yeah, you can actually see like some of the pigmentation is a little bit more apparent after 8 weeks. And I was like, that is fascinating and mildly concerning. No, a lot more than mildly concerning.
Yeah. So anyway, after all that, we are actually surprised. People are like, promising, let's keep going. And we were able to find a couple more papers on much higher levels of THD. There's a study done on an open label, which means the consumer get like the final packaging, they know what they're using. This was sponsored by Image Skincare, using their Power C serum, which has 20% THD combined with acetyl Zingerone. And this study has 35 women for over 12 weeks, or a longer time point. I did want to point out that they said these women use 3 to 5 drops of the product daily, but didn't specify whether or not it was twice daily or once daily. It's kind of left up to them. The data looks a lot better.
They actually wanted to look at what they call tone and pigmentation, which is essentially hyperpigmentation. And you can see they track from week 1, week 4, and 12. They'll put the results of their hyperpigmentation data up on the screen. You can see, one thing to keep in mind, this is percentage improvement from baseline. This is in relative. And so, it's hard to get a true sense of like in the previous study where you're saying like a marked 6% or 8% improvement. This is, kind of the difference of that. So at week 1, they note a 10% improvement, and then by week 12, which is great, they tested for so long, they see about a 35% improvement from baseline by then. They also share some before and afters, which we will also share here. You can see that there is overall, I would say, general skin tone uniformity does seem to be improved, and the general tone is noticeable. But I think, I would say at this point, at 20%, you're like, okay,
It does something.
slightly more promising.
Yeah.
I see it.
And it seems like the trend is definitely more on pigmentation and that skin uniformity. I should mention that in this paper, they also measure transepidermal water loss. And the data is like kind of whatever, and they only shared up to 4 weeks, but I don't consider that a ding against THD, because at the end of the day, no one's using it because it's a hydrator. So anyway, that's this study. And then there's even one more study that looked at it at 30%. This is the famed Revision skincare product that has 30% THD Ascorbate. They also have the Acetyl Zingerone in this particular formula. They didn't reference the full ingredient list in this paper, but this is the current ingredient list of the Revision product that I'll put on screen. They have a few other supporting antioxidants as well, they have diglucosyl gallic acid and ergothioneine, so a couple other supporting antioxidants as well. And this one, what I find really impressive is, even though the clinical size is very small, this is only done on 10 people, they specifically want to look at pigmentation, and they are masochists. They tested this from July to September. So when there's a lot more sun exposure in general. They did provide their subject with a sunscreen, but generally speaking, from me and Victoria can tell you from experience, that is still like clinically
definitely making
suicidal.
it very challenging. You also have to trust that these subjects will use their sunscreen.
Yeah.
So I agree with Gloria. I really appreciate a very realistic, difficult testing scenario to put this under, and they have some results.
Yes, instead of using instrumentation measurements, they did a professional clinical evaluation. And from baseline, the hyperpigmentation has decreased from an average grade of around 7 all the way down to about like a 4.5, whereas general skin tone evenness went from about 6 down to about like a 5-ish, which I will say clinical graders, it can be pretty difficult to get like more than a 2 grade improvement, especially over summer for hyperpigmentation. So this was actually a pretty impressive test all around, despite the small sample size.
Yeah, and another thing about clinical tests that's kind of fascinating is definition of what they mean by skin tone and evenness.
Yeah.
Sometimes can vary a little bit. So I do like that they kind of further describe that skin tone evenness can allude to general redness. And are they able to see that decrease? And then they mentioned for hyperpigmentation, obviously it's more like mottled pigmentation, the general spots and whatnot. But yeah, seeing that, first of all, it's a brand that tested their specific product. This is great. Seems like higher percentage of THD is a way to go. So we'll share the before and after results here as well. And you can see on this particular subject, who is younger, we should mention, after 12 weeks, you definitely see general evenness. You definitely see, just overall lightness on some of her general hyperpigmentation, even like freckles. So great. That's like better, like gets better.
Yeah. So that these 3 clinical tests is like basically it. There are some other THC clinicals out there. A lot of them are done in conjunction with other actives.
Yes.
The famous one is one where they actually used it alongside ascorbic acid. I think that was like a 5% THD with 7% ascorbic acid, which you're like, but why? But all that to say, it seems like it's promising in the hyperpigmentation realm, and higher is better. Is the general
Much higher is better.
Yes, is the general direction that we're heading in.
And you better have that acetyl Zingerone, people.
Yep. And all of these clinicals are fairly new. These products are fairly new. These are all post 2020 type products. So that's where the state of THD clinical is. And we're going to take a quick break now. And when we come back, we're going to sum it all up on our key takeaways about THD, our suggestions, who it's for and who it's probably not for.
The animal fun fact, woohoo!
Today is my term. I decided to give Victoria a break from the creepy crawlies, the ones that look vaguely like penises and all that stuff and just go with like the heartwarming type.
Oh, thank the Lord.
Today we're talking about the pygmy marmoset. These are the world's smallest monkeys.
Oh my gosh, so cute.
Yeah, on average they're only about 100 grams and they're basically the size of your hand. They are pretty small. They live in groups of 2 to up to 11, though on average it's a group of 5, and usually like a pretty tight nuclear family with like a pair of like mated bonded pair with little families. And I find it really adorable that academically speaking, a group of them is called a troop. A troop of teeny tiny little monkeys. They are super duper cute, and they mostly live in the rainforest. And I didn't know this term before, but it does make sense. A lot of insects fall in this category. They're what's called gummivores. Gummivores.
Okay, it's not a brand of gummy bears.
It's not a brand of gummy bears. They live primarily off of tree sap and basically like bar resin. So like, yeah, so
just makes me like, ah.
yeah. You'll see them sometimes. You'll see it, but they live in South America primarily, and a lot of times in rainforest you'll see little lumps of fur on trees.
Oh my god!
And that's them like just drinking like tree sap, basically.
Cute.
So this is the pygmy marmoset.
Yay!
Cute and wholesome and simple.
Yeah, nice image. No nightmare fuel. This is great. Love it. Yeah. With that, let's get right into the takeaways because I have a lot of feels.
Yeah. So I think THD has a lot of good press thanks to some, best-selling products. Like I think Sunday Riley CEO comes to mind. Revision Skincare is also touted as a fan favorite. Based on the data, we can't say we'll choose this over ascorbic acid. It's just, generally speaking, that's how we feel. But this in particular, I feel triple validated that I would not choose this over ascorbic acid.
Yeah, I think the unique part about THD is that it's oil soluble.
Yeah.
So in formulation, this can make things quite interesting, and why you might find it in things like a moisturizer. So there's appeal there in terms of positioning in your skincare. However, this a lot of times ascorbic acid derivatives, they're put on this earth to basically sidestep some of the stability issues. And I think at the core, like the first fundamental issue, like this does not pass for me. I feel like it does take some formulation prowess. You can see that a lot more work is being done to stabilize THD, which feels like we're kind of just repeating parallel work similar to ascorbic acid. And I also feel vindicated when we tell people, a lot of people say like, oh, ascorbic acid is old news because of its formulation issues. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the alternatives,
they aren't perfect.
Mm-hmm. Some of them are not that well understood in terms of their stability. So which is why I think sometimes a lot of people are asking us to evaluate the latest and greatest vitamin C alternative, and it takes time and it takes characterization. So that's my initial feel.
Yeah, 100%. I will say the good news in as far as derivatives go is that I would probably still pick this over 3-O-ethyl, which we covered 2 episodes ago.
Still a mystery when I think about it.
Yeah, I think the 3-O-ethyl, what it has going for it is actually kind of the lack of clinicals. So there's still that, like, no one says it's bad. Yeah, no one says it's bad. Like, THC data is, like, kind of wonky all around in clinical, but there are clinicals. So at least you have a better gauge for who it's for who it's not for, which, leads to our general summary is if you're looking for this as an antioxidant replacement, it is not. Like, don't rely on this for antioxidant. The second thing is that the main benefits you should think of with this is pigmentation. If you see a product that gets a little overclaimed over the place without supporting evidence, then this is not the right one.
I think the other benefit of THD and the data is that we have a sense of percentages.
Yeah.
And just like Gloria's alluded to for 3-O-ethyl, it's like, we have no clue. We don't know how it performs. We don't even know what percentage to even recommend. But THD, it's very clear that definitely try to get more than 5%. And it just seems like it needs a lot more to really get those benefits. And I think this ingredient particularly needs clinical testing. Like whatever you purchase needs some sort of clinical testing, because the base data is too all over the place for us to be like, it doesn't matter what you get at 5% with cetyl Zingerone, you're going to get a benefit. Like it's so hard. We wouldn't just not be able to give any sort of direction.
Yeah. So after we did some episodes on pure ascorbic acid, 3-O-ethyl, THD. We also have done some deep dives on other derivatives in the past before. Victoria, what would be your derivative
of choice? Okay. So I use ascorbic acid for preventive care. So in that sense, I think my choices would still be the ascorbyl phosphates, the magnesium and the sodium. Probably SAP, just because that seems to have some nice oily skin benefits as well. I don't know. It's just not there for me. And I think even 3-O-ethyl and THD both, it just doesn't seem like it's really in the antioxidant realm at this point.
Yeah. So that's basically the state of the science of THD.
So with that, it feels like THD is in a bit of a negative space. The good thing is with the clinicals, Gloria and I agree that there could be a position for THD in your skincare. And we're going to do that on the next episode, where we are going to evaluate 4 to 5 products that include THD and how to shop for this ingredient and in a way, a general idea of what to expect when you have this in your skincare. So stay tuned for that. But we hope this was insightful and this answers your questions about THD, because there were so many. We realize this is kind of that hot vitamin C this year.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, and I should mention that if you are a THD lover, like we always say, by all means, like stick to your routine, stay consistent. Like we're not. Don't listen to us. Don't let us rain on your parade. But we just have to be the meat part of the episode is more objective, and this is the state of the research.
Yeah, for now. So we'll see. But otherwise, we will see you guys next time for some THD products. Bye.